Welcome to the relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. An unexpected bit of news by way of Sarah Bormann, an unbeaten up-and-comer from out of Germany in the women's minimum weight division. Apparently, the fight is on. The fight between Sarah Bormann, and unified light flyweight champion Jessica Nery-Plata of Mexico for what are Jessica's WBC and WBA light flyweight titles. I had no idea,
No clue.
that Sarah Bormann was charting a course north of minimum weight to light flyweight to challenge one of the champions up there. I had no idea because it looked a lot like she was positioning herself for a WBC title shot at her own weight, at minimum weight.
Sporting a professional record of 17 wins with no losses, no draws, 7 knockouts. She's a decent-sized puncher at her own weight.
She's got some power, she's got some pop, though perhaps not as much as the fighter she's about to fight. The champion she's challenging, Jessica Nery-Plata of Mexico. We saw what she did to Kim Clavel earlier this year, back in January. It
Feels like that was much longer ago. It doesn't feel like that was this year, but it was. It was back in January.
Jessica sports a professional record of 29 wins with 2 losses, no draws, 3 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 31 professional contests, 31 professional bouts, and I don't think that's about to change.
There's more to boxing than what you see on paper. On paper, Sarah Bormann has more recorded knockouts than Jessica Nery-Plata.
Sarah's got 7 recorded knockouts and 17 professional bouts, whereas Jessica only has 3 in 31, but don't let that fool you.
Told you there's more to boxing than what you see on paper. You would have to see these fighters in action to see what I'm talking about. That Jessica's a bigger puncher than Sarah.
And a naturally bigger woman, a defending champion, last in action in January of this year in what was the unification match between herself and then WBC champion Kim Clavel. Before that, she took on Argentina's own Jessica Bopp.
One of the most decorated fighters that country's ever produced.
Then, WBA champion Jessica was able to pry the WBA title away from Jessica Bopp, then unify it with Kim Clavel. And after that, things just went quiet for a while. There was talk of a potential rematch between Jessica and Kim, but Kim decided to go in another direction, rebuild herself, and now Kim is fighting Evelyn Bermudez, the only other champion at this weight.
There are 2 champions at this weight, 2 unified champions, and all 4 belts are split between them. One is Jessica Nery-Plata and one is Evelyn Bermudez. And Kim, she's fighting Evelyn Bermudez.
Jessica's fighting Sarah Bormann. Sarah Bormann later on this year in December.
My thoughts.
Sarah is an unbeaten up-and-comer that campaigns at minimum weight. That's where Senicia Estrada reigns as a unified champion and Yo Costavalle. Sarah is moving up in weight for this fight, and I would have given Sarah better odds against, say, Yo Costavalle than Jessica Nery-Plata.
I think she could upset Yo Costavalle, not Senicia Estrada, and I'm really not sure about this Jessica Nery-Plata fight.
I'm not. Because she's moving up in weight for this fight, and because Sarah's an inside fighter, the same as Jessica Nery-Plata, she's an inside fighter, a mid-range to inside close quarters fighter. But I don't think she's got enough pop, enough mustard on those shots to outgun Jessica Nery-Plata at that range. We see what happened to Kim Clavel.
Jessica's very good at catching fighters between the shots, between the punches, hooks upstairs, body shots downstairs. I'd wager she's a stronger puncher than Sarah.
Sarah's taking her on December 9th in Germany. Once again, Jessica Nery-Plata is going to have to pack her bags and fight abroad. You know, she's a bit of a road warrior. She won the WBA title on the road, unified it on the road. Now she's defending it on the road.
Mexican road warrior.
Sarah Bormann, challenger, not the champion. The challenger will have home field advantage, though I don't know how much that's going to help.
It's not a good idea to trade punches with Jessica mid-range to inside, and that's Sarah Bormann's calling card. That's what she does. She's a volume puncher.
Saw action two times already earlier this year. Once in May against Yadira Bustillos, then unbeaten. Then again against journeywoman Perla Perez the following month in June. So she ain't got no ring rust to shake off.
33 years old.
4 years older than the champion, though Sarah doesn't look it. She's got a baby face.
She's in the shit now.
As stated, I would have given her better odds to upset the apple cart for Yo Costavalle at her own weight, at minimum weight, than moving up to light flyweight for Jessica Nery-Plata.
But hey,
what's done is done. They're supposed to be fighting, and we will talk more about the fight as the fight date approaches. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, UFC head honcho Dana White on rumors suggesting that Showtime could be pulling out of boxing, except for pay-per-view, at the end of this year. Fuck Stephen Espinoza, and it's about time that shitty product is off the air.
In previous years, Dana White has made his feelings felt, his feelings known about certain fixtures in the sport of boxing. Bob Arum, Oscar De La Hoya, more recently, Stephen Espinoza.
Stephen Espinoza, who returned fire back at Dana White at the Canelo Alvarez versus Charlo press conference. Not all combat sports are the same. No disrespect to anyone, but there are levels to this. This event will generate a gate, money from ticket sales, of over 20 million, our third 20 million plus gate in the last 6 months. To put that into perspective, the UFC have never done a $20 million gate in its entire history. We've done it 3 times since April.
Not a bad reply.
Though it doesn't dispel the rampant rumors that have been floating around as we approach this year's end that Showtime may be leaving the sport of boxing very soon, and that the following year all we're going to get from them are box office fights. No more regular schedule fights.
What's that mean?
What that could herald is the end, because this is exactly what was going on at Fox right before they pulled the plug, right before they exited from the sport of boxing. Raf, Elusive 2.0, Boxing Insider, stated Showtime leaving the boxing industry is also down to video amp technology, which revealed that their viewing figures fell below 5% of the 10% threshold required for Paramount to continue pumping in money to the sport. Showtime Boxing is owned by Paramount. Paramount uses video amp technology, a sophisticated real-time tracking service, and began using this for all of their subsidiaries, including Showtime Boxing. The real viewership began surfacing, not inflated numbers, and a company like Paramount, who is housed with young digital executives, weren't too pleased with the numbers. Showtime Boxing was producing a single percentile, much closer to the 0% mark than the 10% mark. Showbox fell well short of the desired threshold for reviewing continuation.
Do you remember a couple of months ago, back in January, when I talked about what Chris McCarthy, Paramount Global President, said?
Do you remember that he sent out a memo to everybody stating the company will divert investment away from areas that account for less than 10% of views, overall views, on the Showtime platform?
I told you before.
When it comes to boxing, boxing accounts for less than 10% of Showtime's overall viewership and subscribership. They're more a story-based network.
Most of their views come from their story-based programming, not sports.
What sports are doing for the platform in terms of viewership, in terms of ratings, is really next to nothing. And it's for that reason that, in all likelihood, the higher-ups have pulled the funding, and the annual budget that would have went to boxing is no more.
Raf Elusive 2.0 continued.
In audit, finance, we use materiality thresholds, which means that, for example, if an amount falls below X% of revenue profit, we don't bother testing it. But if it's higher than X%, we investigate further. Showbox fell well short of Paramount's 10% detective threshold.
The 10% that McCarthy was talking about in January.
You've been running around all this time believing that things are hunky-dory over there at Showtime and the PBC based on the success of some of their pay-per-views this year. If that's what you've believed, you've been sold a bill of goods from a snake oil salesman. Several content creators here on YouTube telling you pretty little white lies.
Masking the truth.
Showtime may be leaving the sport of boxing. If you needed any further indication, Eddie Hearn has claimed that now he knows for a fact Al Heyman's PBC are already in the market trying to find a new broadcaster to replace Showtime. This follows widespread rumors that Showtime will be pulling out of boxing, except for pay-per-views, at the end of this year. He went from acknowledging the rumor just a few days ago to saying he now knows for a fact. Some of you may find it interesting that DAZN will be the official broadcaster of this weekend's mega match at 168, the Canelo versus Charlo fight. If you're in the UK to watch it,
You need DAZN.
it will be available to DAZN subscribers in the United Kingdom, not as a pay-per-view, but as a part of their regular schedule. And now you're seeing Eddie Hearn saying that he knows for a fact Al is in the market for a new broadcast partner. Is it possible that Eddie heard rumblings about that broadcast partner maybe being DAZN?
Wouldn't be a bad thing.
I'm just bouncing ideas around. I'm just speculating why all of a sudden Eddie says he knows for a fact Al is looking for a new broadcast partner. Could that broadcast partner be DAZN? It wouldn't be bad for customers, for consumers, having two major promotional outfits, in boxing, three really.
Matchroom, Golden Boy, and the PBC.
Imagine if you could get that much boxing content on just one platform instead of it being divided by two, having to pay two fees for two services.
That's value for money.
It's what it would be, though part of the rumor that I heard is that Al Heyman wants to pair up with Amazon. He would like for Amazon to be his broadcast partner, and it's just a rumor. It should be treated as such, but that's part of the rumor that I heard.
It would actually be more beneficial to the customer, to the consumer, if more of these promotional outfits were on the same platform.
It's value for money for the customer, and it opens up several doors that were otherwise closed due to promotional and platform issues, that this promoter's with this platform and that promoter's with that one.
If more of them are under the same platform, you can make that many more cross-promotional fights.
Be a bad thing, no. Though it's far too soon to tell where the PBC will end up if Showtime really is exiting the sport. Understand that Showtime leaving the sport of boxing doesn't spell the demise of the PBC itself.
No.
Not necessarily. If they can find a new broadcaster, they're still in the game.
What about Stefan?
He's fucked. Unfortunately for Stefan, he'd be out of a job. He was the head of Showtime Sports, and if Showtime's not doing sports no more, there goes his job.
In that scenario,
we'll see what happens. Now, ahead of this weekend's mega match, which I mentioned in passing, Canelo Alvarez reflected on the loss to Dimitri Bivol, saying, "I was very hurt by the defeat, but in the end, you just have to accept it."
if it's any consolation, it's not like anybody was in a hurry to go up there like Canelo did and fight this guy afterwards to try and show Canelo how it's done.
No.
They know better.
A rematch is not likely to materialize anytime soon, as Alvarez recently signed a 3-fight deal with Al Heyman's PBC. Bivol is backed by Eddie Hearn's Matchroom Boxing. Alvarez's first fight on the deal comes against undisputed 154-pound champion Jermell Charlo on September 30th at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Obviously, nobody is prepared to lose, right?
Right.
Alvarez said during episode 1 of Showtime's All Access series for the fight, "Obviously, I was very hurt by the defeat, but in the end, you just have to accept it." Alvarez, 33, rationalized his loss to Bivol as a natural consequence of his ambition.
And like I said, after Dimitri Bivol beat the man, after he beat Canelo and became the man to beat, it's not like anybody was in any hurry to climb in the ring with him. Currently, he's struggling to find an opponent.
Thus, if you're Canelo and you lost to this guy, and nobody else is really willing to roll the dice the way you were, there's no reason to hang your head in shame. Good fighters fight other good fighters, and sometimes they lose.
It happens.
Better than protecting an unblemished record fighting in safe fights, very safe fights against safe opponents that nobody cares about. And you also have to look at the circumstances in which I lost, moving up in weight and trying to continue making history, Alvarez said. You have to see how you lost and also accept it and take it like a man and move on. It doesn't stop there.
Canelo's fought 2 times since the Dimitri Bivol fight, the Golovkin trilogy, the John Ryder mandated title defense.
2 fights that have given rise to new insights, observations, if you will, that Canelo doesn't look as sharp as he used to, that there may be some slippage. To that, Canelo agrees with the critics, that I haven't looked the last few fights like I used to.
Most were expecting him to knock out John Ryder, and he definitely beat him. He definitely beat the hell out of him, and he dropped him 2 times. All he didn't do was knock him out, but for some, that was indication that Canelo Alvarez may be on the slide.
Boxing-wise, I wasn't 100%, Alvarez said, according to a translation that scrolled across the screen, but critics are always looking for something, aren't they? And obviously, I agree with them that I haven't looked the last few fights like I used to, and I don't want to just give a rebuttal. I'd prefer to show them. And in this fight, you are going to see the difference.
I feel like to beat Jermell Charlo, Canelo Alvarez is going to have to conjure up a performance similar to the one that we saw years ago against Daniel Jacobs.
Daniel Jacobs, whose physical dimensions are very similar to those of Jermell Charlo, and stylistically there are some similarities.
Canelo Alvarez has been doing a lot of catching and shooting his last couple of fights, marching forward in that high guard, looking to bait his opponents to throw so he can counter what they throw.
Instead of catching and shooting, I'd like to see a bit more slipping and hooking. Oscar De La Hoya, he predicts that Canelo Alvarez will break down and beat Jermell Charlo.
Oh?
Sort of a different tune from Oscar than what he's been saying.
Didn't he say that Canelo Alvarez is a very old 33 due to the number of pro fights he's had since age 15?
Didn't he say, in reference to Canelo Alvarez's mobility, that it's like the guy's walking on quicksand?
Another way of saying Canelo's got heavy feet. Now he's saying that Canelo's going to break down Jermell.
Perhaps Oscar De La Hoya's torn between constantly shading Canelo Alvarez for having left him and making an accurate fight prediction. Alvarez is going to break him down. It's not going to be easy, De La Hoya said in an interview with BoxingScene.com and other media. Charlo is very elusive, knows how to use his feet. He's going to maybe give Canelo some trouble, but you have to think about Charlo jumping up 2 weight classes. It's not going to be easy. Canelo is solid at 168. He's a hard puncher. Eventually, it's going to catch up with Charlo.
I think so.
I have Canelo winning. I just feel that Canelo must knock him out to impress. I think Canelo's last fights have been a little shaky. We all know that, and he knows that. If Canelo comes out and knocks out Charlo, it's a win-win for everybody.
Some are saying that Jermell Charlo's a little bit too polite. That, with other fighters at other press conferences, he wasn't playing nice the way he's playing nice with Canelo.
That perhaps he had more fire in the belly, and in this fight, he's a bit complacent, or maybe he's just shrinking in the moment, that he's nervous. For Canelo, it's another day at the office. It's just another big fight. But for Jermell, it's the biggest fight of his career.
And he seems very much reserved, polite almost.
Careful with his words. Doesn't want to say anything to piss Canelo Alvarez off. Give him that much more incentive to pursue a knockout that he's already got, because he means to impress. He hears what people have been saying about him, and he wants to make a statement.
Knocking out Jermell would do it.
You said it. Reminds me of when Manny Pacquiao went over there, took on Keith Thurman.
They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but some dogs are a different breed altogether.